My acquaintance with Brother Branham and my experiences with him makes me love Jesus Christ that much more. I borrow that statement from a Roman Catholic priest that wrote that in the Jeffersonville Times the week of Brother Branham's funeral. He said, because I knew Bill Branham, I know Jesus Christ better. And that's what should be. When we talk about Brother Branham, it should make us love Jesus Christ more. And I'd have lunch with the leaders, and one day Brother Branham preached in that morning, and boy, he come down hard on the women. And he said something like this. He said, you've gone as far with God as you're going to go till you get ready to pay a greater price. He said, I don't doubt that God has called you, but he said, until you're willing to pay a greater price, you're not going to go any farther with God. And I was sitting next to Sister, and I could see Sister Juanita Cohen, Sister Shakarian, and they were elbowing each other like this so bad they ought to have been sore in their ribs. And after the service that morning, we went over to the Big Apple right next door to eat, and I happened to eat with that bunch, and the women took out after their husbands. Billy Branham does more harm than he does good. Why, y'all shouldn't even let him preach. He runs people off. He shouldn't even be allowed to do that. Why do y'all let him do that? And I sat there and listened to that bunch, and I got thinking, I said, well, Brother Branham is old-fashioned. You know, maybe he shouldn't do that. Maybe they should get somebody else, you know, that's not so legalistic about things. And the next day we went back to service, and I'm standing over at the side, and Brother Branham's over there, and they keep him sitting on the steps about an hour and a half, and they go on and on and on and on and on and on, and finally they let Brother Branham come up, and Brother Branham comes up and he preaches a message called Paradox. And in that message he says, I know what you folks said about me yesterday. You said they shouldn't let me be preaching, that I run more people off than does good. And I'm standing over there and I hear him pray, God, if I'm your prophet, you vindicate this. And I have the thought, man, that's like Elijah on Mount Carmel. And I look, and he's red behind the ears. And he starts over on this side of the audience, and he starts calling people out. And a bunch of people from Switzerland was there, and he couldn't pronounce the name of their streets. And he started spelling it off of their street sign. And I look over here, and people start getting up, getting out of the way. He don't want them coming on across there. 2 weeks before he was due in Beaumont, Texas, I made an announcement to my little congregation of about 50 or 60 people. I said, now, if you come to church tonight, I want to tell you everything that I know about William Branham so that you'll know how to invite the people to the meeting this week. And so that night they came, and everybody was there, and I was about 15 minutes deep, and something was going to be about 45 minutes long. And I made this statement. I said, now, Brother Branham is the long-windedest preacher you'll ever hear. But his meetings are worth going to because there's always miracles at every service. And about that time, the phone rung in my office. And a young boy that was living with us, Clyde Deckert, went in and answered the phone, and he stepped back up on the platform and interrupted me, and he was as white as his white shirt. And he said, Brother Green, he said, this is Brother Branham on the phone. Now, Brother Branham's in Tucson, and I'm in Beaumont, Texas, talking about him. And I told the congregation, I said, look, since I'm talking about him, let me go talk to him, and then maybe I'll have something else to tell you when I come back. Truer words have I never prophesied. I go to the phone, and I pick up the phone, and I said, hello, Brother Branham. He said, hello, Brother Pearry. I said, Brother Branham, do you know what I'm doing? I was going to tell him I was talking about him. And he said, yes, I do. I didn't say, you're kidding. You don't really know. I knew that he knew. And when I got my composure, I said, Brother Branham, am I wrong? He said, Brother Pearry, I just called you to tell you to do all that's within your heart. And if you make a mistake, I'll call you. Now that, if you believe it, is a life-changing moment. Because from then until Brother Branham left us, every time my phone rung, but whether a prophet calls you or not, God sees everything you do. I could no longer lose my temper with my kids. I could no longer be upset with my wife without knowing that God saw it. And He was able to show it to somebody else. And whether it ever happens to you or not, the truth is that God knows it. And it needs to change your life. Oh, He's rough on women if they're immoral. But I never met a finer gentleman. Took his hat off, stood up in the presence of a woman, opened the door, let you be first. If there's a door, you went out first. He came last. It was just his, and it's not like some people do, you know, it was just like, you know, they're awkward about it. But with Brother Branham, it was just fluid. It was so much his nature. I'm an expert at getting the bill at the restaurant. And not one time was I ever able to pay the check with Brother Branham. Not once. Because that was just his nature.
I was thinking, looking back at Brother Fred Sothman sitting there in Brother Banks Woods and them the other day up on the Alaskan Highway. How I stood here at the church and told you all of an animal that looked like deer horns, 42 inches, and a silver-tipped grizzly bear. I'd never been there before, and how that I was going to get this, and how it would be, and how many would be with it, and how they'd be dressed. You know it, every one of you. Weeks and weeks before it happened. And there, when I moved in there not knowing it, there lay that animal. And I went, and it was impossibility if a hunter would know or be listening to this tape, how you can't walk up in the face of an animal and jump up and run. But he didn't. And there he hangs in my den room. There hangs a silver tip, just exactly the way in a rule laying there, a tape measure to show his exact, and a horn will at least shrink 2 inches. How many times have I thought that same thing? If I could take my rifle off the wall, my camp bag, go out in the wilderness and never return again. I've asked the Lord if I can live to see the day I never want a funeral service. I said if I can just go out in the woods somewhere, that old blondie against the tree, that's my rifle, excuse me. I said, I'll tell my wife, said, you know that rifle brother here gave me years ago? I killed 55 head of game with it without missing a shot. Some of them 700-800 yards. I call it blondie because my wife's a brunette. So she said, I think more of the rifle will do her. But so I...
But Brother Branham took this hand and ran it back through the windshield and said, put her hand in mine. And he prayed something like this: Lord, help us in our hour of need. Don't let Mommy die. And Sister Branham came to life.
The other night, my children was telling me that on the television they was going to have a play called The River of No Return. That's where I caught the world record rainbow. Down there one time, the Christian businessman. And they wanted me to see if that was a river. Go to a place for television and see if that was a river. It was Don Smith, the guy taking this girl down. There she was on television, the same girl that I seen had been dead a year. But there, every move she made was right there acting out her voice alive. Now that's in like a fourth dimension. And that same thing will be to every one of us at the day of judgment.
I go in the intensive care unit, and they've just brought Brother Branham out of the operating room. They've got Brother Branham in traction, this arm and his leg, and they've done a tracheotomy on him. And they tell me they've not get him to respond. He hadn't done anything. And I woke up there, and I began to talk to Brother Branham, and I said, Brother Branham, speak the word. He don't respond to anything else. Nothing. I break down, and I start crying. And I start singing. On the wings of a snow white dove, God sends his pure, sweet love. And Brother Branham opens his eyes and smiles. The nurse gets all excited. He's awake, he's awake, he's responding. I go ahead and finish the course, and I tell Brother Branham about seeing the moon. And when I do, he tries to sit up in bed. And he shouts something. But instead of it coming out through his vocal cords, it comes out through tracheotomy. I do not know what he was trying to say. That was the last utterance that Brother Branham made, as far as I know.
God bless you.